We want to make the entire industry, insurance and contractor side, more honest with each other. And we want to make sure we can hold each other accountable.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hair. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast. Louisiana House Bill 924 was introduced to regulate how contractors interact with homeowners after a declared disaster. On paper, it looks like it's supposed to protect consumers, but contractors say it really doesn't. Broad restrictions on solicitation, communication about insurance claims, and just standard business practices could put ethical roofing companies at risk of fines or legal trouble, while making it harder for homeowners to get trusted guidance. Oh, and by the way, House Bill 388 is just designed to make sure you absolutely cannot get any business unless you advertise on mainstream media. To break down what these really mean for contractors and policyholders alike, we're talking today with Jonathan Davis, co-founder of Gator Roofing and Restoration LLC, a licensed roofing company based right here in Louisiana. I'm Galen Hair. If you're serious about winning in this industry, June 12th of 2026 matters. The Level Up Claim Summit brings together serious operators who want to sharpen their edge and separate from the pack. No fluff, no vendor circus, just real conversations with people who are actually moving this industry forward. Seats are intentionally limited. We keep the room exclusive. Once the room is full, registration closes. If you're ready to compete at a higher level, don't wait. Go to levelupclaim.com and request your seat now. I'll see you on June 12th. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Man, so I'm in a much better mood than the last legislative podcast I did because I know you got some good news for us. But before we jump into it, man, I should have worn black the last time. It was a whole thing. So, but before we jump into it, let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from?
I am from Baton Rouge, and I've lived in Denham Springs most of my life, just outside the area.
That's awesome. And how long you been involved with Gator Roofing?
So my wife and I started the company about 3 years ago. I started working for another company in roofing prior to that. And after about 3 years, I decided, you know what, it's time to start my own. I wasn't really involved in construction prior to that, but I gained enough experience working with the other company to where I felt comfortable to go out on my own. I was a business owner and bookkeeper prior to working in the industry at all. So I knew how to do the business side of things, and we decided to risk it all, open a business, hire some employees, and everything's worked out pretty great so far.
I would say so. Y'all are doing really well. You are killing it. But only 3 years old. So I'm curious about when you guys decided to kind of jump into taking action when it comes to legislation that's problematic.
So that was something I was kind of born into. I have been in a political household growing up. My father helps run the state Republican Party. I was elected to the Walker City Council at 19 years old, just, a couple months out of high school. And I've been involved with the state Young Republicans. I'm one of the founding members. It actually turns 10 years old, I believe, this June. And I've also been on the RPAC, which is the Republican Party for the parish, also the state Republican Party. So I've been in a lot of different positions. Currently, I'm the president of the library board out in Livingston. And fighting bad policy and promoting good policy is something that I've done throughout my life, not just in roofing. So that kind of came with the territory. I found out, my business could be affected, and I want more honesty and integrity in the industry. So why not get involved with the association, get involved with the lobbyists to make sure that we are represented properly and that we have ethical policy being presented, and we fight against bad policy that would hurt our industry.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing it because, as you probably know, when these bills came out, we're about to talk about, people kind of panicked, and there really was no clear strategy as to how to deal with these. But you didn't really hesitate, as I understood it. I was involved in some very high level discussions about who was doing what, and I mean, your name just came up every time I had a discussion with a different group of people. how long did it take
Well,
you
I've
from
reached out to a lot of people.
you did, which is 90% of the game, right? You gotta make people
Yeah.
aware, but,
Mhm.
I consider contractors are near and dear to my heart. They're my lifeblood. Obviously, without contractors, my firm might not even exist. But,
Right.
contractors are fragmented. You know, some of them will go grab a beer together as friends, but many of them do not discuss business intimately with each other, They just
Right.
don't.
And that's something that I'm hoping to try and change. A lot of our members are uh, starting to work together, right? Whenever you see the same people at the meetings that we've had time and time again, even if you're not okay with sharing company secrets with each other, it doesn't mean that we can't fight for the same thing for the benefit of everybody.
Well, that's the thing, right? I don't need to give you all my secrets to know that I wanna make sure the government doesn't come after you and the government doesn't come after me. I can collaborate with you in a really meaningful way without turning around and giving you all the things that I think make me special. And I think so many people, it's short-sighted. They just don't see it that way, right? So they'd rather fight alone in a
Right.
trench than fight in a fort full of people. I don't know, man. I don't get it. Talk about the organization though. Let's because again, before we set up these bills, which guys, I'll tell you, these bills are not good if you're a contractor in Louisiana. If you're a contractor elsewhere, they're not good for you either because if these things were to happen in Louisiana, they will be in your state the next day. But before we
Sure.
do that, talk about the organization. Let the Louisiana folks know how they can sign up and everything because I think we can all agree just being able to work together to fight this type of legislation is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and I'll go to the website right now on my computer. It's rrla.us. And they do have a membership form on the site, but currently we don't have any form of electronic payment. So you actually would have to give your dues to a member of the association, or we have Venmo that you can use. So if you get in touch with me, I'm happy to get you involved, sign you up as a member, and I'll go ahead and throw my cell phone number out there. It's never a secret. It's on every social media page I have all over my website. It's 225-907-4715. So if you want to join the association, just give me a call. I'm happy to reach out to you. If you have a roofing question, if you have a question about the new permit bill that was passed last year and you're still having trouble doing that, the association is just here to help roofers, not specifically with legislation, but also with education. We want to make sure that you're doing everything the right way. So that's our goal, is to make sure that we have more honesty and integrity in the roofing industry. So many times we, as roofers, say we're the sketchy contractors, right? That's what we get from everybody, especially after a couple hurricanes, whenever some out of state people come in, they rip people off, they run away with their money. We don't want to be associated with that anymore. We're trying to build a better uh, platform for roofers to work together with, to share information that everybody needs. I know a lot of contracts probably need to be updated since last year's legislation that passed that nobody has even thought about yet. I was even helping one of my association members 2 days ago with a complaint from LDI. So we're working with him to make sure that he can, uh, get a slap on the wrist because he wasn't trying to break the law, have something in his contract that he wasn't supposed to. It just kind of happens. Everybody's using AI to write everything now. So I'm sure you can imagine all the difficulty people have because nobody wants to hire a lawyer to do anything. You should be able to do it yourself, but not everybody knows how to look up what laws affect your contract, what laws affect your contractor's license.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here to do. I joined the association a little over 2 years ago. Representative Glorioso proposed Bill 459 2 years ago, which was very similar to this bill. And it went to the insurance committee. This year, his two bills went to commerce. And the reason they went to commerce is because he left out anything that had to do with insurance in these bills. And they're more appropriately set for commerce anyway, because insurance shouldn't be restricting roofing companies, right? There shouldn't be any kind of transition between roofing and insurance. Uh, you know, the insurance committee should govern everything that the DOI does, right? Not specifically target roofing companies. And the problem with trying to target roofing companies, like Glorioso found out this year, is that you're not really affecting roofing companies. You're affecting everybody with a contractor's license. And I digress a little bit because I was sharing how I was getting involved, but I didn't know who was going to stop his bill. So I called a couple of roofing companies that were friendly with me. They sent a couple guys up to the Capitol and we sent in floor cards because we had already missed the committee meeting. And I said, man, I do not want to do this again. This is terrible. Door to door is about to get shut down. Maybe contingency agreements will become illegal. We already have to give the good faith estimate. There's a lot of restrictions already in place, and we just want to make sure that those restrictions are smart and accessible. Not everybody wants to go look up revised statute or something. So I started searching around, and I found an old friend of my dad's that used to be on the Republican State Central Committee over the state, and he was the secretary treasurer of the Roofing Association. So I called him. I met with the board. I ended up joining, becoming a member myself, and a couple weeks ago, I actually became the secretary treasurer. Mr. Morrell stepped down for me to take the position for the association. So, looking forward to working with the lobbyists this session. Eric Sundstrom with the Chesapeake Group helped us out last year. He's helping us out this year again. So we really appreciate everything he does for us. He keeps us updated on when the bills are going to come up, when they're voluntarily deferred if we're not there, because we're not there for every bill. We're just there for the bills that drop nukes on the industry, right?
Yeah.
We rely on our lobbyists to get the rest of our lighter legislation either passed or opposed to, but not something that we want to put up a big fight against because not every hill is worth dying on, as you know.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So I know that was a little
No,
long-winded,
it
but
was helpful. It was really helpful. And let's go ahead and talk about a couple of bills. 924 is the big one. But let's talk about 388 first, because honestly, even though that's not a Glorioso bill, 388 is like, if 388 were to pass in its form, none of this other stuff would really matter, right?
correct, yeah.
Basically, 388 just says it's a prohibited act for a contractor to do anything that would be considered solicitation at all, and it lays things out. It's like send emails, I think text messages was on there, door hangers was on there, in-person
Right.
visits was on there. So basically what it
Mhm.
stands for is the proposition of if you're not getting your customers from TV, from radio, from
Or a
billboards,
billboard or a yard sign or
or
something, yeah.
maybe Facebook, right? You're not getting customers.
Mhm.
That's really what it stands for. You know,
Exactly, yeah.
and storm or not, I don't care if you're listening to this podcast and you do all retail, good for you. But guess what? If any of your guys are walking by and see a roof that looks like needing replacing, you will be committing a civil infraction under that statute just by going and
Mhm.
visiting that property owner and saying, "Hey, you really need a new roof, and I happen to be a roofer." So I don't care whether you're a storm chaser, whether you're not, whether you do insurance, whether you do retail, whether you do mix. 388 essentially takes what you think is your constitutional right to go ahead and do business. And honestly, it puts you in the same world I'm in. And that's how I can tell you it is constitutional, right? Because as a lawyer, guess what? I can't do any of those things you're prohibited from doing onto this bill.
Right.
And so, it's been upheld before. So that bill, if it were to pass, I suspect would survive a court challenge as well. So what's the
Sure.
status on that bill?
So, we'll talk about 388 and 924 because they were very, very similar bills, and they were both brought up, this Monday or last Monday this week. And before committee even started, Glorioso voluntarily deferred those bills. And a lot of people don't know what that means. A lot of people think you have to vote on a bill or, it's yes, no, whatever. Sometimes they can abstain, but there's either it passes or it fails committee. Well, there is a third option, and a voluntary deferment means that he pulled the bill off the agenda himself, and he wants to figure out later if he can try to put it back on the agenda. Now, some bills don't ever come back up if they're voluntarily deferred. Some bills do. I I don't know if it's 50-50. It might be 60-40. So we are waiting for more news to come out on that. We're going to check the agenda weekly. We're going to contact his office and try to figure out what is going on with that. I have heard from a couple other friendly House members that one of the bills is not going to come back up, that only one is going to proceed. And I think that's 924. But it's, I'm still trying to figure out who's working with what. I've heard some associations do support it, but told me they don't. Um, from different text messages from people. So there's just a lot of confusion with the bills, whether or not they're going to come back up, who's supporting what, and just officially, the roofing association does not support 388 uh, or 924 in any capacity.
Yeah.
So we are working hard against them. We had several people show up and put red cards in before the bill was actually voluntarily deferred, and we're gonna see what happens. I believe if the bills do come up again, they may come up towards the end of session, just because he's gonna have to gather support, work on friendly amendments, meet us halfway at the table to figure out if we can, as roofers, agree to some kind of neutral ground. And what he wants to do with the bill is he wants to get rid of the out of state contractors, or at least that's what he says. And I don't really like a whole bunch of people coming in, taking all of our business. Anyway, we have enough roofers here, especially over the past couple of years. I think more roofing companies have opened in the past 2 or 3 years than any other time in Louisiana.
More
And I think that
roofers, more
was
public adjusters, more property attorneys, man. I heard the phrase
right.
storm
Yeah.
lawyer for the first time in my life during Hurricane Ida, and now there's law firms running
Hmm.
around claiming to specialize in this
Yeah.
work that 4 years ago had never even touched a case. And that's fine. Look, it's America. But yeah, no, we got a lot of people, but that that reason doesn't sound true to you, does it?
No, not really, just because the bills that he's proposing uh, affect all roofing companies in the state, not just people that are outside the state. So I'd recommend, if you want to hurt out of state roofers from coming in and doing a whole bunch of phone calls and text messages and bringing, a few hundred people from out of state to walk doors after a storm or something, just make the reciprocity harder with other states. Don't allow a new contractor's license for 3 months or 6 months or whatever the time limit in the bill was. I believe this one was six in HB 924, to keep people from walking doors or advertising. I think it made you put some stuff in your contract that made it null and void, or gave you a penalty or something if you didn't have it in your contract within a certain timeline after the storm. So there's just a whole bunch in the bill that really would have stopped roofing companies from being able to operate like normally. You have
Yeah.
to change something every time a hurricane comes up, and to me, that's bad policy. You shouldn't have to change what you do depending on if it's a named storm or a regular storm. We're roofers. In fact, the Department of Insurance is the one that regulates named storm versus wind or hailstorm, right? That's a cause of loss. That has
Exactly.
nothing to do with a roofing company, right? So you're legislating the wrong piece of the puzzle,
Oh, I
right?
agree.
We already have a law that you have to have a specific revised statute copied and pasted in your contract at like 12-point bold font or 14-point bold font or whatever. We have that at the bottom of page 4, right next to our cancellation, that says you're not allowed to assist in helping a homeowner or policyholder, contractee eat a deductible or not pay the whole deductible in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of contractors don't even have that in their
Oh, I know, it's
contract. And that's
wild.
something
I
that,
read so many of these
yeah,
contracts, they're, like, completely non-compliant.
yeah. And that's something that we help out. Whenever our members join, we're happy to take a look at their contract if they want to send it to us, just so we can make recommendations. And of course, we're not a lawyer, but we do want to give them the revised statute that allows them to make sure at least they're in as much compliance as we can find, right? But no contract is perfect, right? There's always going to be some loophole. There's always going to be something that you leave out. And contracts are really to make sure that we do the work and we get paid for the work, not to, nitpick, right? It's just a good faith. And we work off contingency agreements. So we do a whole lot of work for the claim at the beginning, with the agreement that if insurance provides coverage for the full roof replacement, that we are the contractor that gets to do the work.
Yeah.
So that's generally how we work. Is that a lot of contractors that you work with? Is that generally what they do?
Yeah, the vast majority of the contractors we have are on contingency or insurance proceeds agreements, and They do some, I don't want to say adjusting the claim because they're not adjusting, but they do a lot of work on the front end. They want to look, even if they're not going to issue some kind of causation report, they want to look and make sure they believe in the damage because otherwise they're wasting time. And then they work up and they do very detailed estimates. And, I would say we end up coming into the process if the homeowner or the commercial property owner isn't able to get it paid, we end up coming in. And often with some of the contractors we work with,
Mhm.
we don't need anything else. We might need an engineer if there's a big causation issue in the case, but usually we don't need anything else. And it's exactly that work that y'all put in that matters. But let's talk about 924 because it kind of stops some of that. And that's kind of wild. So I'll give the high level overview and then we can dig into whatever you want from the bill because there's so much. I mean, we could talk about this
Yeah,
bill for
there is a lot in there.
hours.
Mhm.
So first of all, it talks about a catastrophe response period. Okay. So after a declared disaster or emergency, there's like a 6-month window where special rules will apply. So everyone's sitting at home. And by the way, that's not just roofing, it's also water mitigation, repairs, etc. All right. Um, During that 6-month period, there is no direct outreach to homeowners. As we talked about with 388, but this is, of course, 924. No door to door, no flyers, no calls, no texts, no emails. Don't be cute and try to hire an appointment setting company. That won't work. You hire appointment setters, and that means they're calling or texting or reaching out on behalf of you. Um, Certain inducements. I think that one is fine. The inducement section, I actually didn't really see the point of banning things like rebates, deductible waivers, cash prizes, anything of value tied to inspections or insurance claims. If you've got a rebate you're
Yeah.
offering,
Well, that's already
yeah,
illegal. You can't do that anyway. That's already in law.
yeah, well, exactly. As long as they're tied to inspections or insurance claims, I think is where it was slightly unique. But I don't read that to say you can't
Mhm.
offer a rebate if your manufacturer is offering a rebate on something. You just can't say rebate
Right.
only if you let us help you with your insurance claim. So I wasn't worried about
Mhm.
that. I thought that was easy. Even the disclosure, I thought the disclosure was silly because you guys have so many disclosures you got to do already, but you gotta have a special
Right.
bold disclosure. Keep in mind, this is during the catastrophe response period. So you gotta have 2 contracts. You gotta have a contract when you're not in 6 months after a disaster, and you gotta have a contract when you are. So you, from an administrative standpoint, you have to know which contract your sales guys have to be using on any given day. Um,
Yeah.
it was kind of dumb in my opinion. No offense to Representative Glorioso, but license info, statement that you're not a public adjuster, duh. Reminder, homeowner is responsible for deductibles. Notice a homeowner's cancellation rights, licensing board contact. It's honestly just making more work. Where it gets even harder than the no solicitation is it gives the homeowner a chance if you do not follow these rules to the letter, the homeowner can get out for up to 1 year. And if they do get out, the only things you get paid for are emergency mitigation work that you actually did and the actual cost of materials plus overhead. But that's going to be documented overhead the way the statute's written. So you're not getting 10% overhead necessarily. You're probably going to get specific overhead. So you're even going to have to fight with your
Yeah, maybe hourly wages or something. You'd have to fight with a lawyer about it, yeah.
yeah, so you're going to end up
Mhm.
spending more money than it's worth in 90% of these situations just to try to get what you are owed.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're going to get nothing. Um, Obviously, this makes sense to me, and this is kind of a universal rule anyway. You can't rent your license out or lend your license out. That's a violation. Um,
Yeah, well, that's already illegal too.
yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I remember when I was a young lawyer, like still wet behind the ears, I had a client who was being accused by the board of renting their license out. It wasn't what was going on, but so some of this statute is really duplicative and redundant. But the thing, oh, also fines 10%, up to 10% of the contract, 5,000 per violation, but also disciplinary action. So you could lose your license altogether over this. So the real issues, as I
Yeah.
see it, are the no solicitation, the 6-month window, and the cancellation rules. Anything that I missed about the bill that you think our listeners should really know?
I know we've said a couple times that there are a bunch of things already in law, and really those 3 things are the major points, but I would say I am tired of seeing people propose these same things that are already illegal and just putting a different, um, burden on the contractor. Like, which law are we supposed to follow, right? Or not follow, but be penalized through? Are there 2 penalties? Are there 3 now? And the house staff is supposed to look at all this. The lawyers that write these bills, they're supposed to double check all this, and sometimes they don't always do a great job.
So, Jonathan, other than what I covered in the bill, anything big that I missed?
Not particularly. There are a couple things in the bill that, like we mentioned, are duplicates, and that happens a lot whenever so many bills go through the House and the Senate. The Senate lawyers sometimes get overburdened, or the House lawyers, whenever they're writing bills and they don't check everything or they don't do everything. And we just had a small problem with that earlier in the Insurance Senate Committee. I testified on a bill with Senator Hodges this morning, one that the association is actually putting forward. It requires anybody that LDI licenses or is overseeing, they make sure they put their license number in all their communications. So a simple addition to your signature on your email, and it does exclude text messages, was one of the amendments that we put in. But if an appraiser, public adjuster, or producer sends out something, it needs to have their license number on it so you know that you're actually working with somebody that's really licensed by the state. And
Mm.
maybe that doesn't matter so much to the producer. I think they already put their license number on a lot of stuff. But whenever you're an appraiser or were an appraiser and you didn't get the update that, last year, all the appraisers January 1st were no longer appraisers. Everybody had to reapply. Representative Furman proposed a bill that you had to have 3 years of experience with a specific license, and it's a handful of them. So you could be an adjuster, you could be a public adjuster, property loss litigation attorney, structural engineer, residential or commercial contractor. There's a big list of licenses that you have to have, but you have to have 3 years experience with all those to currently be an appraiser. And a lot of people didn't know that, so a lot of people tried to keep appraising afterwards, and appraisers don't put their license number in their emails whenever they send the invocation to the insurance company on behalf of the policyholder. So I think, and that really wasn't a big problem, right? It was a shock to everybody if you're not actually paying attention to the legislation going through the House and the Senate, which is another reason why we try to promote education with everybody. But we want to make sure that if you are appraising or if you are adjusting, you are doing it legally with a current and active license. And that license number requirement is just going to help the general public or, maybe even the adjuster on the desk side look up the appraiser real quick, make sure they're actually registered. I know of a few appraisers that actually did appraisals without having their license because they lost it before they found out they were not appraisers anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that'll fix, the small little transition problems like that, especially people that forget to renew their license. It'll be easy to check, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just policy, good policy that we want to support. Not everything the roofing association does has to do specifically with roofing, right? We want to make the entire industry, insurance and contractor side, more honest with each other, and we want to make sure we can hold each other accountable.
Yeah, and there's real people behind all this, right? It's not just about a roofing company protecting their ability to solicit because they make more money. Obviously, that helps, right? Revenue's important. But,
Sure. Hmm.
imagine a Hurricane Laura, because, I've been here since Katrina, and I would consider Laura to be one of the more expansive geographic devastation events, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Imagine a Hurricane Laura where Louisiana-based roofers with presences here and established presence here in a world where TV, radio, and billboards weren't even really up and running for months, right?
Right.
Louisiana-based roofers could not even try to help these people. They could not go by and offer to tarp their home. They could not go by and offer to do, emergency mitigation work. They could not go by and offer to fix the roof. None of that could be done. That would have slowed down
Yeah.
recovery by years. Even a 6-month hold would have slowed it down by many more years, not just 6 months. And
Yeah.
I think the state of Louisiana, the citizens do better when insurance, attorneys, public adjusters, insurance adjusters, and contractors all work well together. We're not always going to agree, but we should be able to at least treat each other fairly. And some of these bills, man, they just don't do that, right? I like your one with the license. I actually just sent out an email to my mailing list the other day, yesterday supporting that bill.
Yeah.
Because I pull all the legislation regularly and summarize it and tag it as either policyholder friendly, policyholder threat, or, yellow, like in between. Um,
Yeah, and those are the bills that we really want to look at is if it doesn't kill the contractor roofing industry, if it doesn't kill the insurance industry and it's better for the policyholder, that's our primary target, right? We want to make everything as easy as possible for the homeowner because they're in this big tug of war after they file a claim. Is my contractor right? Is my insurance company right? It's more than likely somewhere in the middle, just like most arguments or most debates that go on. So we really need to watch out for the policyholder because they're the one that have to deal with the frustration, filing a claim, going through the motions and emotions, right? Depending on how you view your insurance, right? If a claim hadn't been paid out in 6 months and all of a sudden an appraiser comes along and 30 days later you get a brand new roof, that's a problem. That means somebody failed. Either the insurance company failed for not providing coverage, or the appraiser was too aggressive and he shouldn't have approved the roof. Thankfully that we have an umpire in situations where the two appraisers can't agree. But I've even seen appraisers on both sides where a whole roof probably shouldn't have been changed, right? So I
Absolutely.
think whenever you escalate the claim, uh, any kind of escalation really works against the insurance company in favor of the policyholder, which generally we are for. But too often, we see even people on our side trying to supplement the claim. And this is what I testified last year whenever Representative Adams posted his bill about soliciting and door knocking and everything. I said that there are some roofing companies that come and knock doors, file a claim, finally get the roof approved, supplement it to get it to the very max, and then they put it in appraisal. And then they give it to a lawyer because they didn't pay out the appraisal amount from the very beginning. They were more than 30 days late, trying to create a bad faith scenario. And I understand you want the insurance company to be held accountable of. But if the appraisal is one-sided and, they go to litigation and everything, yes, the homeowner gets indemnified and probably a little bit more, but you also have to look at if that happens too often, what are the effects of that for everybody else, right? You have to imagine everybody's premiums going up in your zip code or your area because people are sometimes too aggressive with claims. We want to work enough to eat, not enough to gouge ourselves, right? And there are a lot of roofing companies that are very, very aggressive, have very, very bad tactics. And that's something that, of course, we want to combat with good policy as we move forward. This year, the four bills that we proposed were very minimalist. We want to just dip our toes in the water, right? We're trying to fix some very easy surface level issues first before over the next few years we start proposing larger and larger bills for bigger and better reform for the industry.
Some real change. Yeah, and look, some of your bills they're still changed. They're just targeted. So look, we're
Right.
almost out of time, Jonathan. And before we go though, you
Yeah.
mentioned 924 might come right back on for committee at some point. So what
Correct.
do our listeners need to do to support, the state of Louisiana and making sure a bill like this doesn't harm our policyholders?
Well, if you are not a member or if you're not on our email list, because you do not have to be a member to be on the email list for me to send out updates for legislation, please get with the association, send a contact in on Facebook, call me, text me, like I gave my phone number in the earlier part of the podcast. I try to always be available or I will call you back, but I will make sure that the legislation is being brought back and that we need to show up just like we did yesterday and the day before, put in a bunch of red cards against the bills that are coming up. And of course, if you are willing to speak, please speak. The committee members need to hear your story, how this would affect your business, scenarios where if this legislation were passed, then this past scenario could not have taken place. And I really helped the policyholder or the homeowner in this situation. And that wouldn't have happened if this would have gone through. Those are the stories that the committee members want to hear because they only listen. And it's not the committee members' job to foresee every single scenario, right? They're not God.
Yeah.
They only know what people present to them and what they can deduce from their own life experience. But outside of that, they need to hear from us. And that's why we put in the red cards. That's why we go up and speak to the members on these bills. And generally, uh, it really happens beforehand too, right? It's 50-50. A lot of representatives whip the votes before the bills even go into committee, get a good idea if they're going to pass or fail. And that's why we don't just need to show up to committee. We also need to email the members of the committee and make sure they know, hey, we don't want you to support this bill, or we do want you to support this bill. Right. And our lobbyist helps with that. He sends an update to the association every week with different links to the amendments, the bills that are going to be on the calendar that week. So it's very helpful. And that's how I get information to send out to everybody about these bills.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's the way to do it. Jonathan, you've been generous with your time. We're a little over time, does not matter at the end of the day. But one thing I do like to ask our guests is what it means to you to level up.
To level up. Well, I'm a gamer, right? I grew up playing video games. So to me, that sounds like you're getting stronger, bigger, and better. So that's what we want to do, right? With our own personal life, with our businesses, with our families, we want to be forever going in a positive direction, right? Gaining knowledge, hopefully making more money, right? Making better decisions, being more organized. And if you're a Christian like myself, get to know your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ better and better every day.
Could not agree more. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Jonathan Davis from Gator Roofing for joining us on the podcast. As you can see, some serious bills that if you're a contractor will affect you. But as Jack Hanks and I discussed in an earlier episode, I don't care if you're in Kentucky, Alaska, Hawaii, California, or Louisiana. These bills matter to you too, because if they're coming to one state, they're coming to every state. These things tend to go and they tend to test them. So if you value your ability to work with customers and not have to spend loads of money on mainstream advertising, get involved, do what you can to protect policyholders. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the show if you want more conversations like this. And if you're serious about operating at a higher level, join us June 12th at the Level Up Claim Summit. Limited seats, exclusive room. Request your invitation at levelupclaim.com.